the guitars, Jerry had asked in his will that the Doug Irwin guitars return to their maker. And essentially the guys, i.e. the other three of the core four, they had big ideas. They wanted to put them in their own museum. They just didn't want them to wind up in the hands of private owners, you know. And hence things got a little messy, and made only messier because of the fact that Doug Irwin, Jay, do you know the story behind what happened with him kind of around this time this was all happening?
Loosely, yeah.
So Doug Irwin was involved in a hit and run accident, and it was really messy, and it kind of messed up his life for a while. And I don't want to get too deeply in the details, but I really personally think that Phil Lesh was on the right side of history on this one. I understand the intent why the guys didn't want them to go to Jim Irsay, for instance, the guy that owns Tiger. He's like the owner of the Colts. You can like Google pictures of him. You know, we'll throw one in the YouTube video of him like with a tie wrapped around his head holding Tiger, like as if he has it held hostage, you know. And he tours it around the country and lets Kenny Wayne Shepherd is the guy. He's probably one of the last guys that got to play Tiger, oddly enough. Yeah. But I mean, he owns Beatles guitars and drums and yada yada. Just a big. It's like the same as.
Why do you think Jerry wanted the guitar to go back?
Well, I think that Phil actually has a really good little point to make about this, and I will play it right now.
I was also upset by the decision of the other band members to contest Jerry's will, in which he had clearly stated that he wanted his custom guitars to be returned to their maker, luthier Doug Irwin. Management advised us to fight the will since, according to them, GDP had bought the instruments for Jerry. It was such a classic Jerry gesture, wanting to return his instruments to their maker, that I couldn't in good conscience be part of a lawsuit to subvert his last wishes. The irony was inescapable. The Grateful Dead, which for over 30 years had given me so much joy and meaning, had turned into a source of frustration.
Oof.
He went back to his maker. He wanted his guitars to go back to their maker.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I've got some heavy stuff, but I really feel like hearing some of this stuff in Phil's voice really sends it home.
Oh, it does.
But yeah, I think that is such a classic Phil thing. Like it's the world against Phil, and he's just thinking about his buddy. And you know, we often try to avoid the Jerry woulda cliche, but I think that in this case, if anybody's gonna say Jerry woulda, we can let Phil speak for him, right? Like, I think
they're so similar.
Yeah.
In terms of brevity or like heaviness.
Yeah.
Importance.
Approach to music. And
yes,
absolutely.
Different,
that's
but
where
also
they meet.
Like a core value shared.
Right.
I did want to touch on the Jerry Will thing.
Yeah.
Having spoken with Doug Irwin, Doug had stated that, you know, when he would be backstage with Jerry, a lot of times Jerry would tell him personally, you know, when I die, I'm giving you back these instruments. And he would say it in front of Steve Parrish, and apparently Steve Parrish didn't like the notion that Jerry was going to give those guitars back to, because Steve was the one that was handling them all that time. And I know that Phil mentioned about management being the one pushing, but one of the big guys pushing to keep those guitars and go against Jerry's will was Mr. Steve Parrish.
So he could option them
maybe
later?
Taboo or whatever he wanted to do with them. He ended up keeping a couple. He had the beans for a little while, and I think he had Alligator before he gave it to Deborah, or she got it in the judgment or whatever came out of that. But yeah, and I don't know what the whole, you know, the big story or the big rumor was that, you know, Rosebud broke down on the last show and Tiger was played. And, you know, I busted that myth a long, long time ago,
I
but
remember
it
that,
started
yeah.
somewhere, you know, and it's ironic that the GDP out of all the Irwins kept was Rosebud, which was the last guitar played by Jerry, not Tiger.
Yeah.
That should have went to Doug. And had they told the truth, or to this day they haven't produced any evidence from the Grateful Dead side of that last song on what guitar Jerry was playing. But we've found us enough proof online to establish that it was definitely Rosebud and not Tiger.
Waldo, can you clarify what you're talking about there? Because that is a crazy topic that I don't think enough people know about.
It's like
And
our
from,
Zapruder
from
film,
my
right?
own experience, it sounds like all of the recordings on the archive. I can't remember if there's a cut at a certain time, but they only released a certain. What was your confirmation?
Well,
as to, like,
the confirmation was the in-ear monitors they were using at the time were being recorded as
they
well.
had their own stream. Yeah.
Right, they had their own stream, just like in the old days where they would stream it by radio, so you could tune into a radio station outside of the stadium and record the show. They had a separate monitor feed that obviously we didn't hear unless they stepped on that pedal. Sometimes you'd hear them mistakenly tell him to turn Bob down or something that he meant to go into monitors, but he hit the button wrong. Well, that feed right there, when they come out, Phil calls two encores. So we knew that it wasn't, Box of Rain wasn't a surprise call. It was already called before when they stood on stage, and he talks about that in that monitor. In that monitor feed, but in the monitor feed, you can still hear Jerry playing from beginning to end.
What are you doing, Jeff? Hey, you're Karnak, you know it, right? Come on. Karnak just did a back seat. Right then, we're going to do a double into Black Muddy Revamp. Black Muddy, Boxo. And the second one is going to be Box of Rain.
You know, and they wanted to do a third encore. So we can't tell who it was, if it was Mickey or whatever. Let's do another one. And then calls them all a bunch of chicken shits for not doing the third one.
And a short time to be there. Come on, you guys, let's do one more. Fucking chicken shit. Come on, play another song.
But that monitor feed's on YouTube. It's on my website too.
I'll try to find it and
a
post
link
in
to
the
it.
chat.
Yeah. We can splice that in too right here.
Fucking chicken shit.
And
What
the
section,
after-
Waldo, on your site?
It's in Rosebud.
Thank you. I should know that by heart, but there's so
They
many.
knew
There's so
they
many
knew what
sections.
guitar they knew what guitar was played last, and they knew in their negotiations on what guitars they were going to give Doug back what guitar was played last. And lo and behold, they have the last guitar that was played last.
I'm gonna post
You
this
know,
in our chat.
but Jim Irsay likes to advertise that Tiger was the last one played, and he paid a lot of money because it was supposedly the last one played.
What a fool.
And he didn't allow people to use it. He also didn't allow people to play it for the longest time because he had believed that the strings on it were the last ones played. Until I had to let him know, no, Steve Parrish took those strings off, and he possesses those strings.
This is
You know, so those weren't original. Those
Drama.
weren't the last strings on Jerry's. And then after that, Irsay started letting Warren play it, and eventually some other cats got to play it.
guess it gets a string changed now.
Yeah, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, right? The guy
Right,
who
Kenny
really
was
deserves to play it, Kenny Wayne Shepherd.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a weird. He did like a tour that came through the Boston Garden where he essentially set up an exhibit of all of the famous instruments that he owned. I wasn't around when it happened, but yeah, they had a big exhibit. You could see all the instruments, and then they had a big concert. And I think it's safe to say nobody in the concert were heads. Like it was like just kind of a bunch. Yeah.
He does own a lot of good stuff, and he isn't the worst at collecting them. He does put them out for people to. He does display them.
Yeah.
You know, they become alive when they're played.
One of the most recognizable guitars in Irsay's collection, Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead's 1979 Doug Irwin, known as Tiger.
You see yourself more as a steward of all these artifacts.
No
I mean, you
question.
own them, but really you're taking them on the road. You want people to experience them. You want people to feel the joy.
I look at it as I own nothing because you never see a hearse pulling a U-Haul. You know, it's like, I mean, you know, but as you get older, you get more of a position of service. It's a service of the arts to the community.
He owns Jerry's Budman now too, Macintosh.
Oh. I didn't know that.
The amp that he owns Harrison's SG. He owns the complete tablet for the On the Road book, Steve Kerouac.
Oh wow.
That's insane.
He owns that complete scroll. He's displayed that before. I think at the GD50 he displayed that.
Huh.
Wow.
Rolled that out.
That's nuts.
But yeah, he does own a lot of stuff, and he plays himself. He has his own little band every beginning of every football year. They usually do a show the night or two before, and I think that's why Kenny ended up playing it.
Oh,
Was
okay.
during one of those events before the football season kicked off. He does a little event down there, and his band plays, and he tries to bring in some stars down here. But back to Rosebud, that was the last one. I don't know if you've pulled up that stuff.
Yeah, I threw a link in the chat if anybody's
There you go.
curious, and then let me link to Waldo's just fabulous website for anybody who is here. You must be a certain level of nerd, and while you may not be into the niche of the guitar nerdum,
You should
this
be.
is you should be, but B, this is just Waldo's archive that his Garcia guitar and gear directory. It's just fabulous. It's a museum on its own.